This is episode 2006 of the Vibrant Living series. I'm Kimberly Henry, and this is Living the Good Life. There's been a movement and a process around for some 30 years that pairs the unlikely partners of your heart and your analytical mind to oversimplify things. If you love the idea that logic and emotion can work together in harmony to increase your ease of life and well-being, you'll enjoy this conversation around HeartMath. I am excited to introduce you to today's guest. Our guest today has worn many hats and explored many professional passions. He began as a singer, dancer, actor on Broadway, including 2 years in The Fantasticks, the world's longest-running musical. Bruce has been adjunct professor at Stanford University since 1997 and was named CEO of HeartMath in 2000, having helped launch the HeartMath Institute with founder Doc Childre in 1991. Bruce's clients include Mayo Clinic, the World Bank, Kaiser, NASA, and many more. He's the co-author of From Chaos to Coherence, The Power to Change Performance, and the Harvard Business Review article, Pull the Plug on Stress, both of which feature the HeartMath system. A 2-year health crisis convinced him to focus his energies on creativity. He now enjoys robust health while singing, dancing, and enjoying photography. He recently released Renaissance Human, an album of original songs co-created with the Brothers Corin, and he performs regularly in New York. Please welcome Bruce Cryer. Bruce, thanks for coming on with us today.
Hey, Kimberly. Nice to be here. What a treat.
How are things going in New York for you?
Why do you ask? Well, to be honest, they are a little better. Nothing like a sunny day. It's the first sunny day we've had in a week at least. And there's something about the gloom of late winter that doesn't really want to be spring yet that makes the general vibe that much worse, right? You know, there are some positive signs.
Sure.
I live across the river in New Jersey, but you know, I'm less than a mile from the city as the seagull flies, so I'm very close to it, but not living in it. We're over here in New Jersey, we're almost as bad. It doesn't get quite as much press and isn't as densely populated, but we're number 2 in the nation in terms of number of cases and number of people who have passed. So it's been a really wild place to be at this time, but I feel safe. I've been healthy, and trying to get as comfortable with the unknown and with absolute uncertainty as I can.
That sounds like a great way to phrase it, just being comfortable with what's happening around you.
And there's plenty of moments that aren't.
Sure.
So I try to get back to, okay, this is the way it is. Okay. How do I find some level of comfort with the way it is that I cannot change?
Well, and you're such an expert in that, and I think we'll talk about that in just a bit. I'd love to start by just exploring your journey a little bit. In your bio, we talked about you being an actor, singer, dancer, and then a founder of this incredible program and foundation, HeartMath, and all of the things and clients that you're working with now. So how do we navigate from point A out of college and going into acting to where you are now?
It's a long story, but the simple answer, if there is a simple answer here, is that as a kid, my interests were always broad. I had a hard time imagining what I would do for work, but because I was raised by 2 very socially conscious parents, at a time, the 60s, that was, you know, an incredibly ripe time for both foment of new ideas and activism and anti-war and pro-civil rights and all that, but also a tremendous cultural explosion in terms of music that was new and new types of shows and new kinds of artists and all that. So it was a very, very rich, alive time. And so I just was kind of intrigued by all of it in a way. As a kid, I was not a theater kid. I liked music and kind of was into the pop culture a bit, but not like totally into it. But found my way into singing because somebody thought I might have talent with it and got a lead role in a show that I didn't even audition for. And 2 years later, I was in this show in New York, the world's longest running musical, playing one of the lead roles. And my head was spinning like, how did I get here? 3 years ago, I never even dreamed of ever being on stage, and now I'm playing one of the leads in the longest running musical in the world. have I been drugged? Did this actually not happen? And I'm just dreaming the whole thing.
Oh,
So, but preceding the theater, musical theater and dance and all that was this deep social interest. And I had been, even in college, became a vegetarian and had a strong interest in health and the social causes. And that was also spawning an interest in spirituality. And I was taking yoga and learning to meditate. And so all of that was going on too while I was acting. And I found my interests going more and more into the level of psychology and spiritual growth and health, and less into how to be the best possible actor and how to be better than all the other guys that looked like the boy next door, like I did, and could sing pretty well, could dance pretty well. I was getting less and less motivated by that, and more motivated by how do I help the world and how do I grow. And so I ended up leaving the career after about 5 years of it, and it was a successful career. I had a great time and was never out of work, so that was great. But found my interest going more into these aspects of how to help the world by learning more about myself and learning more about humanity. And over a number of years of doing that with a couple of different organizations that were new and innovative groups, I had met the man, Doc Childre, who you referred to, who is the founder of HeartMath. I met him 10 years before he founded HeartMath. And so we had become friends. And as he was getting closer to this idea of launching an institute and building a system around the heart and what we were calling heart intelligence, he asked me if I would be one of the founding members. And I was like, yeah, that sounds super cool. And so I was part of the original team, as you referred to. And one of the interesting parts of our culture, HeartMath, as we were starting in the early 90s, was we kind of noticed that there were about 6 of us in the original group that had all had professional careers, either in musical theater or rock bands. And we were all like good. We weren't just like played, bar mitzvahs and weddings. We were actually had recorded or had been in major shows, or, there was some talent there. And so we realized HeartMath needed a band, and we had a pretty strong core already. So we created a band. And for the first few years of HeartMath, one of the attractions of coming to a workshop at the Institute was, is the band going to play? We hear HeartMath's got an awesome band. And we were surprisingly good because we had all been proven professionally to be good. So that was a nice facet of it. But for the most part, as I got deeper into the business aspect of HeartMath, and it was in the leadership team from day one, and then eventually the executive, the CEO, it became less and less creative in a way for me personally, because I was needing to manage and guide and lead and travel a tremendous amount as well. And so eventually, then things shifted gears when my health started to have some significant issues, and luckily I got through all of that finally after a couple of years, and then the urge to sing again happened, and then the whole creative side kind of started to reemerge and blossom even more than before. So it's a kind of an unusual journey for sure, but everybody's is in a way. It's just mine's got a little more theater mixed in. And as I said to somebody several years ago, in kind of describing that same journey, and especially the cancer and the staph infection and the double hip replacement part of it, which I didn't go into, I said, apparently I have a flair for the dramatic, because not only was I drawn to that career, the actual career as an actor, but also dramatic things, have happened that sound like, oh my God, how did you manage that? And, but yeah, the tools of HeartMath not only were things that I've taught for close to 30 years now, but have used. And so in that period of time, especially when I was facing major health issues and major emotional issues, my mother passed away also in that same 2-year period, and my marriage was shifting away from existence. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot emotionally going on, independent of the physical stuff. No, not totally independent, but you know what I mean. Separate, but still influential. So it was the tools of HeartMath and my own, just following my own intuitive guidance, that helped me get through it to the point of not just surviving, but thriving. And I am so grateful of how it has moved and transformed over the years.
Can you explain to us, for those who haven't heard of HeartMath, what exactly that is? It seems such an unusual marriage of terms, heart and math. Most of us want to throw up when we think about math.
That balances out the heart, the word heart, which some people find, oh, heart, it's just too squishy, it's too Hallmark card. So, so you're slightly nauseous from the word heart, and some people, and then they want to throw up with the math. So that's why we picked it, to try to see if we could really, mess with people. It's a great question. We've been getting it for a very long time, and one of the ways we talk about it is that HeartMath was designed to be a system of techniques based in science. So math is kind of like science in a way, and I'll say more about that in a second, that allows people to make real the phrase, follow your heart, or use your heart, or play with your heart, or sing with your heart. In most cultures of the world, and virtually all spiritual traditions of the world, the heart has been revered for millennia as a source of wisdom, of courage, of valor, of love, of compassion, of forgiveness. The heart was always seen to be that. Until 150 years ago, when scientists and Cartesians and Descartes and people like that were saying, the heart is an incredible machine, but it has nothing to do with emotion or feeling or anything, or intuition, none of that. But it's an incredible machine, because the worldview at the time was we were starting to make machines. The industrial age was starting. So the view is that it's a machine. It's an incredible machine. Be glad you have an amazing machine. But it tried to denied the connection of heart and spirit, or heart and emotion, etc. So we believed, and especially the founder, Doc Childrey, believed that this was a fundamental flaw in the modern thinking, that we were denying the role of the heart. And yet we intuitively would say to our child, go play with your heart. Go sing with your heart now. Don't be scared. Just sing with your heart. Speak from your heart. We always meant play with that fantastic machine inside your chest. That's not what we meant. We meant a spirit, an energy, a vitality, a passion, an enthusiasm, a love, whatever. So we believe there was a huge disconnect in society, and we were missing the true nature of the heart. So we wanted to create a system of how to access that intelligence. But first we had to prove there even was any, that it was in fact more than a pump. So HeartMath became a bit of, it's a funny term, but it is memorable. And so, if we had hired a branding firm, we probably would have paid them a ton of money for a memorable name, because at the end of the day, you really want people to remember something, even if at first it sounds a little bit odd. Google sounded really, really weird when it was first coming out, and now Google doesn't sound weird. It just sounds like this massive data company that we're scared of. But anyhow, you get the point. So HeartMath, heart meaning philosophy, what we aspire to, the values we live to become. Math, more like the formulas, the how-tos. If I do this, then this happens. So HeartMath is a system of techniques based in science for, if I approach my life this way, this is what will happen in my body, in my heart, in my brain, and most likely in my life. So it's an understanding of how to operate life based on formulas, principles, if you will, based in grounded contemporary science.
Can you give us just a peek at what the science of proving emotion and spirit are connected to your heart? How do you scientifically quantify that?
That was the big question the first couple of years, and luckily we had all kinds of amazing advisors that became attracted to HeartMath guiding us. And one of the key things was when we learned about a branch of mainstream cardiology called heart rate variability. And heart rate variability, in very simple terms, simply means what it says, that our heart rate, the speed of which our heart beats at, is constantly varying all the time. Right now, you and I are both sitting, I suspect, or even if we're standing, we're not running, we're not doing something active. And yet our hearts are constantly changing speed. If we were meditating, if we were asleep, our hearts would be constantly changing speed. If we're young or old, our hearts are constantly changing speed. So that was known before HeartMath came along. What we believed was that somehow our emotional state affects those patterns of how the heart beats. And we started to measure that. So what we mean specifically is we began to look at stressful emotions and what happens in the beating patterns of the heart when any human being is feeling stressed, feeling frustrated, feeling angry, anxious, all the stuff that we're feeling a lot of these days. So we start to look at that, and we discovered a very repeatable pattern, which was that you ask just about anybody to just think about things that currently frustrate them. And the pattern of what goes on the screen showing their heart as it changes speeds is just all over the place. It looks kind of like an earthquake. It's up and down and up and down, but it's in a chaotic, unpredictable, disordered rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's happening. And then when you think about it, okay, when I'm frustrated, I feel chaotic. I'm not thinking this clearly, usually. I'm liable to say something like totally off the wall or something I'm really going to regret having said. And what we had begun to then study was that because the heart and brain are linked, and the heart is actually sending information north to the brain 24/7, information which affects how the brain responds and how the brain chooses to command or direct activity in the body. If the pattern from the heart is this chaotic, jumbled kind of noise coming from the heart to the brain, that ain't good. And researchers before us had figured out that when the pattern is this chaotic looking earthquake type of pattern, that sends signals to the cortex, which represents 80% of our brain, including all the critical thinking and reaction speeds and analytical thinking, communication skills. Those parts of the brain all being affected by this pattern that comes from the heart. If that pattern is chaotic, it causes the cortex to not be up to snuff. And so a term neuroscientists coined back 30 years ago was cortical inhibition, meaning our cortex can't function as well because the signals coming to it are causing it to desynchronize slightly. So cortical inhibition, our cortex is inhibited. We can't think as clearly. We make short-sighted decisions. We say things we regret. We're looking and looking and looking for those damn car keys, and they're in our pocket. All those examples are cortical inhibition at work. And it's all tied into, as we were able to prove over many, many hundreds of subjects, tied into the rhythmic patterns being generated from the heart. Conversely, we start to say, well, what happens when you're feeling gratitude, appreciation, love, compassion, peacefulness? And lo and behold, just like the stressful emotions all created a fairly predictable, chaotic-looking rhythm, the warm-hearted, positive emotions would create a fairly predictable sine wave, meaning smooth. So you can imagine the heart rhythm going up and up and up, a graph, and then coming down and down and down and down, and then going up and up and up and up and down and down and down. And that is meaning the literal speed of the heart is speeding up and up and up for about 5 seconds, and then it starts to return and it slows down for about 5 seconds. So that becomes a very predictable, very ordered-looking pattern. And when you think about that, interesting. So when I'm feeling a wonderful emotion, the heart is functioning in a far more efficient way, far healthier way, far more intuitively good way. It just seems like a smooth-looking wave is going to be a whole lot better for your heart than a chaotic one, yes. And since the heart and the brain are connected, if the heart is sending a smooth wave to the brain, that would be a lot better for the brain, you would think. And then we kind of tie it back to real life. So imagine a moment when, let's say, somebody gives you a compliment, and especially if it's a little bit of a surprise. Like somebody comes up to you and says, Kimberly, I heard that last episode. That was one of the best podcast episodes I have ever heard. And I am very picky about these things. So Kimberly, I want you to hear this. That was really awesome. If somebody says that to you, it feels fantastic, right?
Of course.
And can you remember the feeling of, you're also like everything is kind of lit up, like everything looks sharper, like colors are almost brighter, and like cognitively, like, wow, I feel better. And the energy sustains for a while too. Like, like you just had a shot, a coffee or something, but better because it's all just a good feeling. And so we track that over hundreds and hundreds of people. And sure enough, you get them able to help someone just remember a positive feeling. And instantly that changes the pattern of their heart, how it's beating from the chaotic rhythm of a stressful emotion into this smooth, beautiful, highly efficient pattern of a positive emotion. So that was a very significant learning when that became repeatable and true. And it's pretty black and white in the sense that any stressful emotion is going to cause a disorder in the pattern of the heart, which then affects the brain. A positive emotion, a loving emotion, a caring emotion brings order into the pattern of the heart, which creates more order for the brain. So it's pretty straightforward. And this is not saying don't ever have a negative emotion, because that won't work, number one, because if you try to keep pushing them down, you're not really getting rid of them. You're just making them more compressed. And when they do pop out, best of British luck to you. So we're not saying that at all, but we're saying living in that state does not work and will be associated with chronic illness, with lack of cognitive, the best of what you could be cognitively. It's just associated with all sorts of things. So that's a key understanding, is that our emotional state, whether or not we are justified in feeling angry or feeling annoyed or feeling frustrated, our bodies are still paying a price. And one of the facts that we ran into as well in the early years was a study done by a research lab, not by HeartMath, showing that at the moment of a stress reaction, and that could be like now an alert that comes up on your phone, and it's some news item, or it's from somebody that you, them, Jim, or whoever it may be. And at that moment, when you feel that in your system, that's the beginning of a chain reaction of 1,400 biochemical changes that happen in your blood. 1,400. Because what's happening in that moment is that you're sensing threat. That's what your perception is. This is a threat. And your body is galvanizing the energy it needs to fight the threat. If the threat is actually an email alert, and it's not an animal trying to eat you for lunch, or a human that's wild and weird, it's just you reacting. Well, then you've produced all these biochemicals expecting a fight, or expecting you need the energy to flee, and there you are at your desk looking at the next alert. So we're standing not knowing it, and so HeartMath realized that all those little reactions mount up because we're living in a sea of them these days, and especially now in the last 6 to 8 weeks of the shutdown and the lockdown and all that, let alone the massive unemployment in this country and the economic crises other countries are facing as well. It's just like it's mind numbing, isn't it, to what's going on? And so it's hard to operate at our best when the perception is life as we knew it is now out to get us. And anywhere we look, either the virus is going to get us or becoming destitute, or both. It's kind of like,
let's turn this around, because that feels like it could be overwhelming. It could really cause, and we've been talking about this across the country, across the world, how there's a lot of fallout that might happen just because of the stress of what we're dealing with right now.
Absolutely.
And we've just got a couple minutes left, but I want to learn from you. I'm assuming that part of the HeartMath curriculum is learning how to manage this. So is there something quick you can tell us that those of us who are trying to live this healthy, vibrant lifestyle can implement right away that would help us to begin turning this around?
There are simple techniques, and this is the core of HeartMath, that are extremely positive and extremely useful, because they help us activate the positive side of our nature, the positive emotions. Many of us live with, we're used to the negative emotions, where stress feels normal, anxiety feels normal. And so with HeartMath, we're trying to train our system to the positive. And starting with things like appreciation, which for most people, we have something we can appreciate, even at a time like this. So one of the most basic techniques of HeartMath is called quick coherence. And the notion behind it is, number one, we have one of our most powerful tools to all human beings is our own breath. And if we slow our breath down to about a 5-second rhythm, meaning we inhale for roughly 5 seconds, and we then exhale for about 5 seconds, just that begins to balance the nervous system in our bodies, so the heart and the brain can start to be more in sync, instead of subtly sort of fighting each other like when we're frustrated or anxious. So just breathing in a steady rhythm helps to do that. So what we recommend with this technique, there's 3 steps to it. The first step is to just bring the attention to the area of our heart. Just focus your attention in the area of your heart. And then the second step is to imagine you could breathe through your heart and draw the air in for about 5 seconds. And then you exhale out, imagining it was leaving the heart and exiting. And then draw the air in again through the heart. And then exhale again through the heart. And now keep that deep breathing going. You're not straining to breathe like this. It's just gentle and a nice, even, steady rhythm. And now, while you continue to do that and continue to focus your attention around the heart, now focus on some feeling of appreciation, some wonderful thing that happened to you today, last week, this year, on vacation. It could even be something you're excited and looking forward to happening. And focus on that, the feeling of that place or that person you were with, the excitement of that adventure you're going to have in the future. And just feel that feeling as you continue to draw in the air to a count of 5. And then exhale it to a count of 5. So now you're primarily focusing on the feeling of appreciating or that experience or the fun you felt at that time or the wonderful connection you felt with that person during that period. So focus on the feeling as you continue to breathe in and out in a steady, gentle rhythm.
I feel so calm.
So the three steps
really do.
The 3 steps matter. The bringing the attention to the heart first takes your attention away from the racing mind, which is probably where the stress is happening. So you're redirecting the energy to the area of the heart, and so now your energy is there mostly. The breathing helps to kind of anchor it there, but it also activates this autonomic nervous system, which is critical to the balancing of our system overall. But then breathing is not enough to change perception. But when we bring in a feeling like appreciation, it can help us realize, oh, wow, you know what? I'm still on lockdown, but it's a gorgeous day. And there's a park right downstairs I can go down to in 15 minutes, and I can enjoy that gorgeous day. It's still a lockdown. There's still a crisis situation, but I can appreciate those moments, and that'll help me. So the appreciation or any positive feeling can help you not just shift your system through the breathing, but anchor it through a perceptual shift. When we realize there are things in our life we can appreciate in spite of things being hard or challenging or really tough, that can help us realize, you know what? I've been through worse and I made it. But while we're in it, we can say, oh my God, this is the worst possible situation. I cannot believe this is all happening. Really? You mean you've never dealt with anything worse than this? Really? Most of us have. At some point. I went through a couple of life-threatening situations where the word life-threatening was used. I'm not dealing with that at this moment. So I have for sure been through tougher situations on a personal level. So
Sure.
The point being, if we can change our perception and change our physiology, now we're starting to build the new circuitry that we need to live a life in the future that we want, as opposed to, I love how Joe Dispenza puts it, where we're using the stress of the past to predict the future. So the future continues to be the past. I'm not sure if he exactly said it that way. I think that was really great how I just said it. We're using the physiology of the past, the stress of the past, to predict the future. It's hard not to, because if we're living still stuck in a lot of the stress mode and feeling victimized always by external things that are happening, quote, to us, then we're going to continue to predict, because it's what we know, that that's what's going to continue happening. So I'm sure I'm going to get the virus, we tell ourselves, or I'm sure this collapse, I won't be able to dig out from under it. Tell ourselves that, increasing the likelihood that would happen, when in fact, we got a ton of choice.
Right. And it's so empowering when you realize that there's tools that you have brought together and are providing, like the one you just shared. And I'll be listening to that portion of our interview over and over again, just to really ingrain that into maybe my daily meditation time. I love it. Thank you for sharing.
And it's a short enough technique. You can do it before making a phone call, before doing an interview, in the transition between things, in the transition from work to home. I mean, maybe you work from home. I mean, all of us are right now. Transition from
Right.
living room to bedroom, transition from bedroom to kitchen, whatever. Meaning there are points in our day where we can make shifts, and we are shifting, and we can shift our attitude as we physically shift. And so this is one of the ways that quick coherence technique is one of the most accessible ways to shift our physiology, shift our perspective, and shift our brain's ability to manage all the inputs that it's getting. Our own ability is increased of staying in touch with the intelligence and the power of our heart. And it's no guarantee everything's just going to be hunky-dory. It's still a really wild time out there. No question. But it gives us, when we do this kind of thing, it gives us a chance to, you know what? Cut yourself some slack. You're doing great. I mean, no one could have predicted this. No one's got a roadmap to what we're dealing with. But if we can stay even inching towards more positivity, inching towards, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. Let's keep loving each other. Let's keep supporting each other. We can get there. But we got to do it collectively. We got to give ourselves credit for how well we are doing, even as hard as it may feel most days.
Yes. We are just scratching the surface here. So if folks want to follow up with you, your website, brucecryer.com. And I understand that you've got an event coming up in just a day or two. Would you share with us the details of that?
Yes, it's a wonderful event. It was going to be a conference held in Europe for transformational teachers from Europe. Obviously, it couldn't happen live in person. So we decided to make it a global event. It's called the European Transformational Teachers Gathering. It's a mouthful, ETTG, Global Gathering. I think there's going to be a link associated with this podcast of how to attend. It's a 6-day online event starting Monday, May 4th, concluding Saturday, May 9th. I will be speaking, also leading a masterclass, also be performing. We have a tremendous slate of deeply inspired teachers and speakers who'll be sharing their wisdom. Some are musicians, some are filmmakers, some are teachers with their own systems, etc. And I am thrilled to be part of it, honored to be part of it. And it's $6.50 for 6 days. So literally like $1.08 per day. Now, if you want to go to the high-end package, that's about $65 for 6 days. So we have purposely said we do not want finances to be a barrier. There's so much value that can be had out of this. And this is not your typical telesummit where you've got 25 speakers all kind of pitching their thing. All of the speakers know each other. We are a team. We've been meeting on this for weeks now. We are here to support each other and support everyone. So it's a very different vibe. And I'm really excited that it's happening starting Monday, May 4th. And ETTG is the acronym for the event. But as I say, it'll be in the notes for this episode.
Absolutely. Yeah, we will absolutely include a link to that event and let folks know how they can get in touch and get more information on that. And that is an incredible deal. $65 for 6 days is amazing, not to mention the $6.50.
Yeah. Well, and we had it at a higher price than that, more like the telesummit kind of things for that length of time. And then the founder, Steiner, just had this thought the other day, you know what? Some people are so stretched. If it's $50 a day, that is as good a value as we say that is. That's still way too much for a lot of people. Now, we don't want that to be a barrier. So, because so many people are straining and need the kind of information and wisdom and love that we will all be presenting. People need this more than ever, so we didn't want that to be the deciding factor.
Awesome. Bruce, thank you so much for being with us today. I feel like we could go on for a few more hours. You have so much to share.
Thank you, Kimberly.
But we will let you get back to your busy day, and we hope you'll come back and visit us again sometime.
Well, I'd love to. Yeah, we're just getting going, but I love this, and thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you for joining us for this enlightening conversation. Be sure to visit brucecryer.com to learn more about HeartMath and the many other ways that Bruce works in the world to increase vibrant living. Also, check the show notes to grab that link for the global online event that Bruce mentioned. I'd love to see you over at www.kimberlyhenry.com. And of course, again here next week on Living the Good Life. Have an amazing week.